Hello, I'm Ana Prada from Bogota, Colombia, and I am going to talk about the role of community organizations in the transformation of foodscapes for the consolidation of peace economies and territorial peace in Colombia. What I want to talk about is the opportunities that participatory design have in this moment in Colombia to contribute to peace building in the context of the implementations of the peace agreements. So first, I am going to give a brief introduction and talk about the methodology that I use for this document research. I am going to talk about the importance of the interdisciplinarity in participatory design to create the dialogue with social sciences, sociology, anthropology, but also with engineering and of course with design. And also I want to talk about the perspective of transformation in local foodscapes, which is a new perspective to understand the food issues, like the food studies. It's different to food systems because the foodscapes are centered in the social relationships that are through the food. And from this perspective, what we are interested is in the reducing of the distance between all the stakeholders related in the food productions, especially the producers who are normally affected by the armed conflict in Colombia, but also the consumers, because the majority of them are in the cities like me. They are very close about the reality of the rural Colombia. Also, we want to give a territorial approach to the peace building because in our peace agreements, the territorial scope is very important also because of the diversity of Colombia. Also, I want to remark the importance of recognize the community innovations, and one example of this is Eco Buffalo, which is going to be like the case study for this presentation. About the methodology, I did at the beginning a comparative analysis of 30 productive projects in 10 countries in Latin America to understand what is a community innovation, and then I choose the case study with Eco Buffalo because it's situated in a context of armed conflict, but even though they have a lot of community innovations, and I use participatory action research. Let's go to the next slide. So there are some factors which I think that why I think that this is a context to full of opportunities for participatory design. There are three factors. The first one is the collective construction of tools and capacities for territorial peace that are building the local communities and the community organizations. The second one is that in this moment we are watching a novel national and global spectrum of opportunities for advocacy in public policy with a territorial approach. On the last year, the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture, FAO, decide to celebrate the decade of family agriculture. Also, in the last year, the United Nations recognize, bring for the entire world the recognition of rural farmers and peasants, what we call in Spanish campesinos recognition. And in Colombia, we have a new spectrum that was born with the implementation of the peace agreements, a lot of new regulations, but this is not new because the campesinos and indigenous fight for the recognition is something historical in our history. But in this moment, we are watching like new opportunities. And the third factor is the bottom-up innovations in foodscapes, which are focused in inclusion. The first and the third factor we can see in local organizations, like Eco Buffalo. So I will be focused in these factors. From the perspective of Eco Buffalo, this is a model of transformation of local foodscapes and peace building with a territorial approach in two ways, because they developed an economical project but also a political project, and they identify the way to develop community innovations through the recognition and the value of the local knowledge and the local networks. So for Eco Buffalo and a lot of organizations in Colombia, the political recognition is going to be very important. And I think that these political issues are important to take into account when we are leading a process of participatory design, because the context is very different from one side, from one place to another, and it's very important to understand that kind of things, because those are the things that make sense for the people, and the way how they build their own identity is related with the way how they relate with the territory, and also with the way how they implement solutions for their own traditional problems. And in local organizations like Eco Buffalo, we can see that they are very good at trust building, and they are very strong in the organizational issues, but they still having a lot of technical difficulties and also marketing difficulties. And in order to co-create adequate solutions, it's very important to understand this. And why I think that Eco Buffalo is a model of participatory design for the solution of local and community problems. First is because they had improved the quality of life, increasing the income of the people who is part of Eco Buffalo, of the associated people, through the community production of dairy and buffalo meat, going against the drug productions and so on. They add value and participate in local markets. They had earned political recognition through the. There is not a secret that in Colombia we are going through a difficult path to earn the recognition of campesinos as a social and political identity, but Eco Buffalo had done a lot, especially with the Pisa Reserve Zone, in Spanish, Zonas de Reserva Campesina. They have earned big achievements in this topic. Also, they recognize the role of a woman, the importance of women, of peasant women, and because they have influenced in public policy to permanence in the territory. And in the last slide, participatory design and transformation for foodscapes for building territorial peace. There are 4 reasons why I think that participatory design is very important for peace building from the perspective of transformations in foodscapes. The first one is because if we develop participatory design, understanding the needs and the desires of the communities, but also the consumers of the products that the local organizations are producing, we are going to be able to reduce the social distance between producers and consumers and build trust, which is one of the biggest challenges when we are accompanying local projects and local processes. Also, through the recognitions of local innovations, the local networks, and the local knowledge, is easier to build sustainable innovations that can remain during the time, because we are not going to be the ones who are thinking that we are the saviors or the ones who are going to transfer the reality of the context. We are just going to make easier the dialogue between the people of the communities, because they are going to be the ones who remain Normally the people who is accompany participatory design process leave after they finish, and the community remains there. And also it's very important to implement methodologies that encourage collaboration and the autonomy of the organizations in the creation of solutions, but also from the foodscape view, it's important to support the organizations by moving forward in the value chain. To conclude, participatory design is a way to exchange ideas, recognize local knowledge, and create consensus. That's very important. Also, it can encourage bottom-up and trust-based innovation processes. Eco-Buffalo is an example of participatory design in the community, design of solutions for peace with a territorial approach. And finally, participatory design have the challenge of implement methodologies that contribute to social justice and the reduction of distances between all the actors involved in the food production. And this is a way to build peace, because in Colombia, in the experience of Colombia, it's very important to reduce distance between producers that normally are in the rural places where the armed conflict remains, and also the consumers in the cities, which are very disconnected with the rural reality of our country. Thanks for your attention, and that was all.